Good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 509, I believe it is, something like that. Welcome, I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is currently the 8th of the 7th in the year 2025. Yup, the year is speeding on. Soon it will all be gone. The year is speeding on by. Yup. But here we are nonetheless, talking about the affairs of the day, talking about the news of the day, what has been on your mind, what's been on my mind. Today, it's a nice, lovely Tuesday. Late start as it seems it goes sometimes these days. But let's see if we could jump into some of these stories one time. One of these stories that seems to be pressing on many people's minds is this one from our Prime Minister announcing Kamala raises drinking limit. Legal age for consumption of alcohol to be increased to 21 years. No gambling or smoking ganja under 25 years. Law will be brought to Parliament to raise the legal age for gambling and marijuana use to 25 years and over, and also increase the legal age for alcohol use to 21 years and older. And government is reviewing and amending the tax laws regarding pensions, as Prime Minister Kamala Persad believes once a person reaches 60 and has been contributing to the pension system for decades, they should no longer be taxed on their retirement benefits. Persad announced the developments at last night's UNC Monday report in Penal, first in a series of such meetings. In a first meeting reporting to UNC supporters since the party's April 20th general election victory, Persad detailed moves for upcoming legislation and other developments regarding the judiciary, budget 2026, and her intention to contest the party's leadership election ahead. Tanticams ain't finished yet. Look, Veni has large amounts of energy, example oil, and their country is very rich. How you justify that saying? Kirk Christopher, I didn't say how much energy you have in the ground. I said how much energy you are able to utilize. Slavery was about energy. It always was. And when I'm saying slavery, don't think myopically in the small little bit of history that was the transatlantic chattel slavery. I'm talking slavery in general. What it was about was getting energy. We want more energy to build bigger things for us to do less work. So we utilize how best we can get that energy. And the wealthier the nation back then, the more access to usable energy they had. That's why some argue that what sent slavery in the West into just historical terms wasn't just the niceness of people's hearts, but the reality of finding alternative forms of energy production that were more efficient. As in, if we didn't find and weren't able to utilize oil and gas and those other fuels, very likely. All right. But yeah, on this law, to me, I don't mind. No. I agree. The reality is, although marijuana the use is decriminalized in Trinidad and Tobago, where do people legally go to purchase the herb? Where is such a herb legally purchased in this country? There's no legal dispensary for the herb. So, pretty much, any user of the herb is either they're growing it themselves or they're buying it illegally. If someone is willing to sell you it illegally, do you think they will be also bothered about your age? Can you imagine going to the illegal pusher? Walk up to the pusher. Oh, let me get 25 dinner. And he like, hey, let me see your ID dinner, soldier. Dr. X says in an interview, Alexander said they won't legalize the use and sale till they make sure youths can't access it. That's not going to happen. That's not actually going to happen. Because if youths get accustomed to blazing from a young age and they know where to go and access it illegally without having to show their ID, do you think if you change the law, that's going to change that? It's not going to change that. Anyone in Trinidad who is under 18, 18 is our current legal drinking age. Anyone who is under 18 and wants to drink, drinks. Anyone under 18 who wants to drink, drinks. So, I don't think that will have much of an impact. Gambling, maybe more so, because gambling is a bit more centralized, so you could have an effect on who gets to play a little better. But there have been 14-year-olds playing playways since, so it's not something that's going to be automatic. Now, however, the reason I don't disagree with it is not because I think it's going to be a silver bullet and change any great societal thing, but I think it is a signaling of something. It's a signaling that the society is not okay with people under 25 using these things. So yes, the access will still be there. Yes, they will still use it, but the signal is that we aren't okay with it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. At least societally, we say where we stand on this. I don't see that as a negative. I don't think it would do worse to let that be known. Was society ever okay with it? Well, we basically were saying at one point in time we were okay with people 18 to 25 gambling and 18 to 21 drinking, and now we're saying we're not. We were basically saying people 18 to 25, we were okay with them smoking marijuana, and now we're saying we're not. So that is something that is changing. You can go into any Chinese restaurant and gamble. We're not okay with prostitution. However, sir, there's a lot of prostitution all over the place. There are public advertising corners of prostitution in this country right now. So, I mean, but as I said, with Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, a lot of what Mrs. Prasad Bisesa is doing and saying lately is good politics. Night ting ting. By and large, most of the words that Mrs. Prasad Bisesa have uttered have been good politics. Those around her that are organizing the speeches, she herself, if she's choosing what she's saying, most of what she says plays into very good politics. Now, the fact that she isn't ever present in the cabinet and in the front lines could make you wonder if it will be a really good a leader that plays really good politics while the rest of the machinery does as it does. One can wonder. But this is good politics, and I don't see a negative in it. Like, the criticism is that it won't do much, but I don't think there's a fair criticism that it will do something bad. It's not going to cost the country more money per se. It's not going to hurt anything. The possibility is that it may benefit a little. Mikhail Modesta says, because if you can't decide at 18 to drink or not to drink, how can you decide on politics? Fair question. And I don't disagree with it. But good politics. And that is a lot of what they're doing. That is a lot of what they're doing. And to be fair, the UNC, if we were to just talk politically, not speaking necessarily on the actual merits of something here, but in the political arena, the UNC got in because the PNM played bad politics while they played good politics. Basically, it's to appease the public. That's all. Keep them happy with little. Well, as this is something I said with regards to Double G when he was the commissioner, and some people were making the allegations that Double G is just mama guying people. And he isn't actually doing the things that he says he's doing. And it's just talk. He's mama guying the people. He's making them feel like he... And I was saying, to some extent, as a public figure, mama guy me too. Like... As a public figure, mama guy may sound wrong, but as a public figure, part of your job is making sure the public feels a certain kind of way. Good vibe, we spoke about the roads last week, bro. The roads unlikely have a whole lot to do with the changing of government. Very unlikely that they do. It's very, very unlikely that you're seeing much change in the roads condition because of a change in government. That's not a very likely thing right now. But yeah, politics is where it's at. And we can't be upset for people playing politics because that is the game they're in. They're politicians. Yeah, the PNM did not play the good political game. Not even talking about the merits of it. They didn't. I've been driving on the road daily for the past 15 years. Many people have good vibe. And I know the roads have been terrible, but if you were listening to what they said, there was a lagging period that, according to the last government, was due to using the funds during COVID. And the last government started a heavy road repair campaign sometime starting of this year, ending of last year. So it worked for the benefit of the new government that the last government started the road campaign, so that now it feels like with a new government we have new roads all over the country too. But it started under the last government. It started under the last government. A dodging potholes like a playing tic-tac-toe in Barrackpore. Hey, I drove that Barrackpore, what you call that Barrackpore main road again, boy? Oh gosh, forgot the name of the road. That road is horrible. Oh my goodness. My goodness. Oh. Whew. How people driving that daily? Well, they miss a lot of mean spot for a long time. Yeah. Alright, let's jump into more politics. More politics here from the opposition. Beckles, what did Modi's visit cost taxpayers? Opposition leader Penelope Beckles has called on the government to tell the country the cost to taxpayers for last week's official visit by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. After criticizing the government for putting CPEP workers on the breadline, Beckles last Saturday said the cost of Modi's visit from July 3rd to 4th must be publicly disclosed when Parliament resumes in September. She was speaking at a PNM meeting in Enterprise Shigonas under the theme In Defense of the People. The PNM political leader accused PM Kamla Prasad Bisesa of political hypocrisy after Modi's visit, citing the award to the Indian PM of the Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Beckles recalled that in 2021, under then PM Keith Rowley, the Indian government donated 40,000 COVID-19 vaccines to TNT. She said this was never supported or acknowledged by Prasad Bisesa. She further stated that while in opposition, Prasad Bisesa had questioned the science behind COVID-19 public health measures, claiming that sunlight kills COVID, and taking the previous government to court over the matter. Aretha Miriam says it ain't cost nothing. Of course it ain't. But that's a good point, and such is politics. Such is the hypocrisy of it all. I remember that they weren't very happy about the donations during COVID. They didn't cheer for that. And like, for example, the point I made about Jindal, they insulted the man straight out of the country. But I feel pretty certain if Jindal came under UNC government, they would have welcomed him. So it's all politics, and I despise that kind of politics where it's all about the pragmatic, selfish end. What's to your benefit? What's to your selfish benefit? What works for your own good, but not for the betterment of the actual country, which is a horrible place for our leaders to be at, but it's unfortunately the reality. However, there was a reply to Ms. Beckles from Michelle Benjamin, the MP for Moruga Tableland. So, opposition leader Penny Beckles wants to know how much Prime Minister Modi's visit cost us. Yes, Penny, it cost us dearly. Here's the horrifying bill. 2,000 laptops for school children, 20 dialysis machines, and 2 sea ambulances to help save lives, a prosthetic limb camp to help 800 citizens walk again, solar panels for government buildings, US $1 million in agro-processing equipment, access to India's UPI digital payment system and DigiLocker tech, quick impact grants of US $50K for small community projects, training programs in forensics justice, affordable Indian pharmaceuticals, women's cricket training exchanges, chairs in Hindi and Indian studies at UWI, and let's not forget India has now extended OCI status to 6th generation diaspora. Yes, Aretha, the I in BRICS. The I in BRICS is India. Now, with this answer, my main thing with this is just wanting to see these firmed up, because as I regularly say in politics, the words and the actions. The words and the actions. The leaders can say all kinds of things, and then in the end, when you look it up, it's not necessarily so. Pharmaceuticals also sounds good. It can be good. It can be very good. And India is well known for being a pharmaceutical producer. But they're also known for producing generic pharmaceuticals that may not all be considered up to scratch. So there's a point in that to consider. And there's always the idea of making sure that the deals are above board, as in who pays who for what. If we're talking about affordable Indian pharmaceuticals, how affordable is affordable? Which company is bringing in the pharmaceuticals? Is there a private company inside there? Are there private citizens making money inside there too? But I don't see this as a negative, generally speaking. Once these things actually come to fruition, that's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. It's a good thing that these things were donated. However, I don't see this as a negation of Ms. Beckles' question. Because A lot of these are promises. So it still makes sense for us to see what we paid for these promises. So, okay, great. Highlight the benefits and the possible benefits. But still, I don't think it's wrong to show the costs. And I think it's needed, in fact. I think we need to know the costs. We'll get those only 6 months before next general elections. Keep up your good works. Your blog has tremendous educational benefits. Appreciated, Kirk Christopher. A lot of generic pharmaceutical is not good for human body. No, the thing is, some generic could be just as good as the designer, as the brand name. It's possible. It's just sometimes it isn't as stringently monitored. Penny and them have some cost to answer for also. Facts. Now, the thing is, good vibe. The costs that Penny and them have to answer for, to some extent they already answered for in a loss. Like, unfortunately for us, much of the accountability that could be held up to politicians isn't really in the getting them in prison and getting back in money kind of sphere. It's in the getting them out of leadership. So, in terms of answering for costs, that group already answered. That's why they don't have power now. And I don't think it's to our benefit to keep monitoring the last group. Like when PNM was in power, it would make sense for me to spend days speaking about Mrs. Prasad Bisasa. I barely spoke about Mrs. Prasad Bisasa as much because she wasn't the one with the power. She's not the one to look at. You can't question her about her spending per se when she's not in governance. So it's not PNM who spends the cost. And you see, like, the thing is, for Prime Minister Modi's visit, that didn't only cost in terms of direct cost the country paid out for security and transport and whatever. There would have been costs, for example, in delay of business. You know how many people lost money that day? Many people lost money that day. So to make it seem like the cost is inconsequential, I think is foolhardy. And you're starting to play the same game that got PNM kicked out of the job. You don't want to play that game where people ask, so how much of our money you spent to do that? Should the loss of power be enough for us, the taxpaying citizens? No, it should not. Unfortunately, we don't live in a reality of shoulds. It should not. But we don't live in a reality of shoulds. Before this UNC government, before the last PNM government, before the PNM government, the same PNM government that was before that, before the partnership, before the PNM government under Manning, way before all of that, way back in the 90s we're talking about, there was some corruption in the Piaco building of the new airport. Up till now, we're still barely struggling to receive some legal fees out of that. So, thoughts on the CPEP thing? We spoke about that last week, and I mean, it's cruel, but it's the nature of the thing. part of the political game on both sides. It's part of the political game on both sides. The political game on one side is to pretend like you're offended by people losing jobs, while you aren't offended by the thought, because you would willingly kick people out of jobs to put in your own loyalists there. But that's the way it goes on both sides. Yeah, and it's hard to present evidence to get more than a loss of power. And a lot of money unaccounted for in CPEP. Well, you'd have to prove these things. You'd have to prove these things. The talk about it is one, but you have to prove them. There was a lot of talk about corruption under the partnership. There are very few cases coming out of it. What does that mean? What are we to take from that? All I could see from that is my attempt to hold those who currently hold the power accountable. But the idea of running down them who have gone, it doesn't seem to work. It doesn't seem to work. And I really don't like the pointing at the past wrongs to aid in ignoring the current. Like, to me, that's such a foolish kind of idea. Telling me that my last employee stole from me, so I shouldn't look at my current employee, isn't something that is soothing. But yeah, it's the nature of the game. And not all of the contracts out of CPEP were short contracts. What I think would have been the better thing to do is just let the contracts run out, but they have the prerogative to do what they do. They have the choice. They could determine what they do with it, really and truly. That's what it means to have the power. For the next 5 years, it will be well. The PNM did XYZ. I hope not. I hope at some point in time that excuse wears off on some people and they start to hold their government to account for what their government does on a practical basis, not on a comparative basis. It will never work like that. It will never work like that. Then no one could be held to any standard. Of course, very likely he will end up with some millions too, but that's the way it goes. They pay some millions to get rid of him, basically. Speaking of allegations of corruption and what you can prove, Munilal wins $0.5 million appeal in defamation case against Juliet Davy. Energy Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal has won a major step in his lawsuit against columnist and talk show host Juliet Davy for defamation of character. The appeal court on Monday confirmed an earlier decision that said Davy and now defunct TNT Mirror newspaper had defamed Munilal. However, Davy still has the right to take a case to the Privy Council in London, England, which is the country's highest court of appeal. Should pay $475,000 in damages and $69,000 in legal costs. Further to that, Davy has now been ordered to pay an additional $46,000 for the appeal itself. Munilal was presented by senior counsel Larry Lala and Taruna Mangru, while Davy was represented by Michael Kwamina SC and Gitanjali Gopi Singh. Listen, when I see lawyers and lawyers with loyalty here and loyalty there and where it all represents, I get the feeling, as I always say, that government is a make-work program for lawyers, really and truly, What do you think about raising the legal age on alcohol consumption? We spoke about that earlier, and I don't have a problem with it. I think it won't have a big effect on anything, but I don't see it as a negative. Now, there are some practical questions to me that need to be answered. If you raise the age of drinking from 18, then why can't people vote to select who can lead the country, but they can't decide if they can drink? That, to me, there are some squabbles there. There are some squabbles there that we need to iron out in terms of what we see as an adult, what age we see as an adult, and firm that pretty clearly up. In HDC, they hired employees with no need for employees on 2 months contracts. That happens regularly. The lawsuit arose over 2 articles Davy had written in the TNT Mirror in 2016. In those articles, she claimed Monilal had become rich through corruption, pointing to an online list that said he was the 4th wealthiest person in Trinidad and Tobago with an estimated personal wealth of $2.58 billion. However, she was unable to produce any evidence to prove her allegations. I remember that list, and that's why I tell people, don't just take up social media trends and what people say on social media and run with it. Can you prove it? Good vibe, this is the point we're just making. Like what Doc Egg is saying, there are men who was in this guy's pocket get free house and all kind of thing. Such are things that you must be able to prove. It's one thing to say it, it's another to prove it. There were allegations, all kind of fantastic allegations about who owns a mall where, who spent money on what, how many homes this one owned, who buy a home on this one name. Coming out of the partnership, there were novels that could have been written about allegations and rumors and hearsay of corruption coming out of that group. That's why most people, I think if you were to poll most of Trinidad, many people might think that the UNC governs better, but there's a general sentiment in Trinidad that the UNC is a more corrupt party. That is a general sentiment. There's a reason for that, the amount of allegations, the amount of stories that came out. But how many of them actually went to jail? Does that mean that nobody was corrupt? Or does that mean that everybody was corrupt? Neither. It's just the reality that we live in. Don't worry, Doc Egg says, in time you'll see. I happen to have first-hand evidence that was handed over to the MOA. We will see in time, that's true. That's true, we will see in time. Listen, I don't know if we... I'm kind of dumbfounded. If you notice, I'm grasping at words to some extent, that people so wholeheartedly are convinced of such things. Listen, there were contracts allegedly given out the night before or the day before the election in 2015 when the partnership lost. Several contractors got millions allegedly, and they sued the government to get their millions after the new government, and the new government counter-sued and put all of them in basically a kind of racketeering lawsuit with the same minister that just won the defamation lawsuit. That case is still churning its way. Still churning its way. Those are things where you hear people talk about, boy, I see them myself, boy, them hand that money hand in hand. And I mean, a contractor getting $1 million contract, like some people were talking about with CPEP there, getting $1 million contract the night before election, there's no way to not make that look suspicious. Yet still, it's still chugging its way through the court system. And here's the interesting thing now. Now that the governments have changed again, which government is in charge of prosecuting now? And do you think they would be very interested in prosecuting themselves? The current Guyana president, I can't remember the number, was it 24? It was a large number of allegations and charges on his name. Large number of allegations on his name. And as soon as they entered into leadership, all those allegations gone, because they have a law. The president cannot be under criminal investigation like that. I'm trying to figure out how farmers scamming the 8 years to get measly subsidies. There have been farmers who scam duck egg. Let's not pretend. There are some farmers who are struggling. Then there are some farmers who are scamming too. There are some farmers that sold the product that allegedly was destroyed in the flood. I mean, there are farmers claiming for things that weren't theirs. There are all kinds of scams going on there. Let's not pretend. Let's not pretend, man. Come on. Let's be honest about it. Let's be honest about it. But as I said again, prove it. So, the chances are some of these things you're talking about here as allegations of corruption, you sure on Fasani boys them. And even if, let's say, an investigation goes on, the investigation takes a year, so sometime next year, all right, sometime next year they're looking to file charges. All right, the court case comes in end of next year. By the time they adjudicate that, and next year is what, 26? 27 they start some adjudication, maybe mid 27 if you're lucky, if it's speedy. But by the time they appeal and they bring up this motion and that motion and the other motion, it's 2030 and the next election comes. And if PNM wins, and now they're in charge of prosecuting themselves, same thing again. And the only thing that we succeed with in the intervening time is the only people that get a good solution out of this are the lawyers. The lawyers are getting paid either way. The case doesn't have to be solved for the lawyers to get paid. They're getting paid either way. Duckegg says you're not supposed to build in agricultural land in the first place. Supposed to. But we know differently than that. So I don't know how much hope I have that any of the allegations would bring anything concrete. I don't know if that's going to happen. But Caribbean wants us to pay up. Antigua PM to TNT, pay up outstanding US $60 million. Antigua and Barbuda Prime Minister Gaston Brown is urging the new PM Kamala Persad-Bissessar government to fulfill a commitment made to the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States during the tenure of the People's Partnership government. An obligation that would cost Trinidad and Tobago approximately $60 million US. This matter stems from the massive financial crisis that originated with the collapse of two major Caribbean insurance and financial companies, Colonial Life Insurance Company CLICO and British American Insurance Company BICO. In this crisis, which began in late 2008, sent shockwaves across the Caribbean, particularly affecting TNT and the OECS. About $1 billion was lost by EC depositors. Those are funds that were invested by clique or BICO in the Trinidad economy. And we felt that there should have been greater participation of Trinidad and Tobago in the resolution of the issue. Now, the previous Kamala administration had agreed to provide a compensation of 100 million US dollars for the OECS countries, of which 40 million US dollars is paid. Unfortunately, the Rowley administration did not honor the remaining 60 million US dollars. Brown explained to Guardian Media during a lunch break at the 49th meeting of the Caribbean heads of government in Jamaica yesterday. I think, forget that. I think that dead. Personally, Tanticams, I leave him on blue ticks. Yo, Cams, remember that 60 million that you had OE from 10 years ago? You could link it to 2 ticks delivered, 2 ticks turned to blue, seen. You even see a typing. You just see online, 2 blue ticks, and the online disappear. Read it and leave it. So, that dead. Unless we sign some kind of agreement, unless there's some kind of bonding legal agreement, I think that dead. Personally, unless there's a bonding legal agreement, it dead. What do you mean? Listen, that was a oh gosh, we feel it's a hard luck. Take a little something out of hard luck. Because listen, some of that whole 2008 bacchanal was resolved in a wrong way, you know. Investment has risk, and if your investment crash, you can't expect all your risk to be negated. That was the risk of the investment. Trump say all who was owing have to come in with the money. Listen, Trump has the strongest military in the world. They sneak bomb some people halfway across the world and reach back home before they wake up. That's why he could talk about who have the little dust, bring it in. Sir, to be fair, Antigua not saying that kind of saying. You get 40 million US. Right now, we trying to organize our own budget. We have too much extras to be trained around the place. That dead. Forget about that. Let's move on. And like after the blue tick comes hit him, some other time on some other topic, she just come and talk like he never asks about that. So like a hurricane watch coming in, and she shoot out a message, yo, Gasti, I hear a hurricane coming in, man, best wishes. Pretend like you never see that message. Every time he reminds you, you never see that message. 60 million US from 10 years ago, brother man, nah. I find that could rest right. I find we could forget about that. Between friends. Because, as I said, from how he said it too, that this was because the money lost was invested in the Trinidad and Tobago economy. Listen, if you all made the money, if you made money off of the Trinidad and the Tobago economy, were we supposed to take it back from you? You are aiming to make money off of the strength of our economy, and the investment went belly up because of wherever bacchanal went bacchanal. We supposed to now, out of the taxpayers' money, pay you more out of it. When the investment went belly up, it's not like Trinidad and Tobago made money off of that per se. We lost too. Today the man put an additional 3,000K for visa. Listen, I can't vex with the people in it. It's their country. It's their country. And if he wants to make it a lot more exclusive for entry, how can I vex with the people? And what marvels me in this, in the talk about how the US treats with immigration, is nearly every Trini, if you talk to them about the Venezuelans in Trinidad, are further right-wing than Donald Trump on immigration. Most Trinis are more right-wing than Donald Trump on immigration. If you talk to them concerning Trinidad and Venezuelans and Guyanese and Jamaicans and the Africans that come in here, boy, them people are to come out of this country, you know. They, some bacchanal playing out with some little girl and some chicken and egg down in South. Some Venice only make the mistake and let the voice be heard inside of the video. Now some Trinis want to go down south to deal with the matters because what Venice doing in this? Trinidadians are more right-wing by and large on immigration. Them don't want no people in the country. I say send all of them, Veni them back. How normal of a conversation is that in Trinidad? If you take a poll in Trinidad, should we send all Venezuelan immigrants back to Venezuela? What do you think the numbers will be? And then we pretend like, oh no, how dare they? How could they do such a thing? They're just like you. They don't want too many foreign people who are poor and may not be of high class in their country. That's just the sad reality of it. They want to filter out who comes in the country and who stays. Wouldn't you do the same thing if you could? If you were living in the country that everybody wants to come in, would you choose the best or the worst to come into the country? You have the pickings. Wouldn't you attempt to put a filter on it to get only the best to come? It's kind of amazing to me. I see some people out there on the webs complaining, how dare the United States make it hard for me to go there. That place so evil and wicked and racist. How dare they make it hard for me to go there? What? Huh? The place so wicked. America with 3 Ks. And watch what they're doing. But you're vexed that you can't go there now. Like what? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. So now, Brother Gasti, I think we could ease up on that 60 mil and forget about that. In construction, them Spanish busting up work, true. That's true. That's true. Now, here's the thing, eh? If money is flowing in the Trinidad economy at such a level where there are enough people to be at the higher levels in construction and make the killings while paying Venezuelans day labor fees, and they make a nice profit from that, then it's to the benefit. But if the economy is as such where there are many Trinidadians currently looking for those day labor fees, and the Venezuelans are willing to take 50% lower wages than the Trinidadians, that's what would start to affect us negatively too. Some of them could work, yeah, without a doubt. I don't think they can't. Of course they can. But I want the criminal ones out. Well, that's a hard thing to filter out, eh? There are many Venezuelans who work very hard too. What do you think about Raja answer today or yesterday at CARICOM? I don't know what answer you're talking about, to be very honest. Government to introduce Lord Chancellor of the Judiciary post. The government plans to introduce the post of Lord Chancellor of the Judiciary to oversee the day-to-day logistics and running of the courts, and nationwide consultations will be held on this major change. And the Law Association has come in for strong criticism from Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Bisesa. Speaking on last night's Monday Night Report, we plan to introduce a Chancellor in the Judiciary. Currently, our system has a Chief Justice who has to do the administration, deliver judgments, and oversee the whole operations. But at the rate TNT's grown, we've outlived that kind of model. Everything is more and more. We've discussed the Attorney General on our instructions, talked to the Law Reform Commission to examine establishment of a Lord Chancellor for the Judiciary. The Commission has prepared a research note and will be reviewing that in the Cabinet. The Chief Justice will be in charge of the Judiciary, but the Chancellor will oversee the day-to-day logistics and running of the courts. At the same time, the Chief Justice will focus on managing legal cases and overseeing judges, magistrates, masters, and other judicial personnel. She added the judiciary is in a difficult place. The Chief Justice is being bogged down in operational duties and daily management activities and is hindered from his core function of delivering judgments and monitoring judicial appointees. We can fix the operations and give the Chief Justice and Judiciary what they require, fit for purpose human resources. She said they hoped to have legislation drafted by October and will have nationwide consultations on this. Taking aim at the Law Association, which yesterday expressed deep concern at attacks on independent senators, the PM said, interestingly, the Law Association, which is often criticized for its silence, but suddenly found its voice to express concern over what it perceives as an attack on the independence and integrity of the Senate's independence bench. But those are the president senators. LATT is the same body that remained silent over the past 10 years when the PNM destroyed the sacred core of democratic principles, institutions, and the rule of law. That is going to get tired. That is going to get tired. It's going to get tired. Everyone who criticizes you must be compared to any criticism, should they have or haven't given it before, is going to get tired real quick. And the good politics that you play are going to fizzle out compared to that. And limit the system needs to be put in place for the Venezuelans to also pay tax and limit how much they send back to Veni. Certain business places only hire Venezuelans. Yes. The Chinese and the Venezuelans seem to have formed a real good bonding relationship. That is unfair, basically telling someone how to spend their money. A remittance tax isn't an unheard of thing. I don't think a remittance tax is a horrible thing. I think any construction site that only hires Venezuelans need to pay some street tax. Venice buying gas and food and paying in USD to fishermen that sell back on the black market. Yeah, they are. And remittances aren't a positive necessarily for our country. We are losing money, and especially the fact that they'd be wanting to send those remittances back in USD, we'd be losing precious forex. So, remittance tax is one way to do it. I know in the US they're talking about that. That's one way they can snuff out a lot of immigration, because a lot of and that does say something. You're not immigrating to a place because you want to go there because you think that's a better place and that's where you want to put down roots. Not really. You're immigrating to that place to take resources out of that place and send back to your home. And I mean, why should a place want that? Why would we want that? Why would we want people to come here, extract our resources, and send it back to their other country? Like, what's in it for us? Why would that be something that we'd facilitate? I don't mean that as an insult. I understand why people will do it. And I mean, every Trini may have benefited from some kind of remittance at some point in time. I'm not being hypocritical in that, but I understand. But from the perspective of the place, why would you want that? Now, this Lord Chancellor business that the government is proposing here, I don't know. I hope that this is a step in the direction of alleviating the clog in our system. I don't know though, because I'm not sure what causes all of the delays in our court system. But if what they're saying is the Chief Justice has been bogged down with extra duties, and this role would help to remove and alleviate some of that, and hopefully speed up the whole thing, then that's a positive. But again, I wonder, as I often say, if this is another example of the URP program for lawyers that government seems to be. If this Lord Chancellor of the Judiciary post, which is very likely going to be an office, may have 15 new lawyers under employment, and how much it will cost in total. Now, I'd like to see that compared to what the benefit would be. If it would benefit and indeed speed up the speed of our legal system, then maybe the cost would be worth it. But we have to know the cost and see the speed. I'm paying Spanish to work right now about double the local rate. Locals don't even want to come out. Well, yeah, that's by and large true. The immigrants are more desperate. So you generally, if you get a good immigrant worker, they'll generally be a lot better even than some of the local workers because they are more desperate. So that's a reality. That's a reality. But and you see, there's an issue in that, and this is where capitalism starts to become a little problematic. The full free market idea, because if you open the full free market as it were the whole world, there are people in the world because of where they live may work for $50 TT a day, and if we open up Trinidad to be allowed those workers, yes, that will benefit some employers. They would be able to hire workers for a very low fee. But I'll destroy the local labor market also. How much more I should offer the locals? I don't know. And I'm not saying that I'm against hiring Venezuelans in all areas. And I understand the predicament. But and to some extent, some of these may be policy issues. The solutions for some of these problems may be at a policy level, not a level where individuals necessarily can make that change and force it to happen. Where if the government allows a certain level of workers in, just by the nature of the incentive structure, that's what would happen. Plenty Trini people lazy to work, that's true. I don't deny that's true to some extent also. Alright people, that's all I have for now. Any questions or comments on the inside before I dive out? Well, look how people finding employment on Mindful Live. If you're looking for employment, come in the chat. People offering jobs, good jobs. Come and get a work. But you know, that's one of my problems when I see big strong people begging in it. Like Trinidad has a lot of employment out there. There are lots of places hiring in Trinidad. There's lots of work in Trinidad out there. I kind of tend to not believe people when they say they can't find a job or they're unemployed. I tend to struggle to believe them because my experience in Trinidad and Tobago is there are lots of jobs out there. Lots of work to do, and lots of them don't pay too horrible. And then there are many jobs with insane perks too in Trinidad. You could go and find yourself in a nice medium to large company, and in short time be driving a company vehicle. Now, Nathan, the job market is very tight right now. I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that. There are still construction sites men walking up to and getting work. And if you work good there, the builder carrier, the contractor carrier to the next job. There's still that happening. Almost all fast food outlets are hiring. Almost any hardware wants a lorry man. Get your heavy T license, and they always want truck drivers. Spanish? No. Many of those construction sites are hiring Spanish out of necessity. I do contracting, I'm telling you. It's not that there is a surplus of workers and people are going any, mini, miny, mo and choosing out all of the Spanish workers and leaving the locals. There's lots of work out there. Lots of jobs that say they're hiring and not taking anybody have been sending in resume for hundreds. That may be a case. But to me, by and large, I just find it, from my experience, the job market seems to be ripe out there. Like, I feel like maybe I could be arrogant, but I feel like if any person hooks up with me and asks me to get them in a job, I think I'll get them working by the next week. I feel like I could get you working by the next week. Now, it mightn't be the best of salaries, but I feel like I could get you working by the next week. And here's the secret. Don't leave that job till you find another one. And bam, never unemployed again. Or you're so sure of yourself. I just came out of school last year and I have experience working, but nobody wants to take me. It may be, if you're looking in a specific field, that may be difficult. I don't know if you mean in any job. You mean no job wants to take you? As in subway rituals? None? No. You don't know about work right now in TT. So, fast food outlets are not hiring right now in TT. You're telling me, Andy Farrell? Neither me, Abdul, I purposefully try not to, but it happens sometimes. Because the hardest thing, I know lots of small to medium contractors in different fields, different trade-like fields. I know lots of them. And you talk to nearly every one of them, and their problem is getting reliable workers. The guy that does lawn maintenance, he complaining to me last week, boy, the one good worker I had, he buy a waka and a blower and start his own business now. The other man, he's come to work when he want to come to work. He don't want to work. That's the complaint. The AC guy. But with the youth man you had last week, boy, that man fired the work, boy. That man, he called me and tell me nothing, he just ain't come out. The mechanic, I go on by the mechanic, the owner on the floor again. Boy, I thought you had two men working with you. By them fellas, I give them a van to drive and them go on and crash the van lineman in Cora, boy. And them even come and tell me Monday, I come and I see the van crash in the yard. That's the stories you hear. Not that they don't want to hire anyone. Like Mindful Education must be hiring, not directly, but if your CV is worth it, why not? I won't deny a good worker. Mindful Construction may be hiring. So, I mean, I may be ignorant of it. Who knows? I may be ignorant of it. But from my experience, I don't see it. I just don't see it. But maybe some people do experience that. I can't deny, as Becky says, she's applying everywhere and fast food call center everywhere. Okay, maybe that's the case. See if police would take. So, I don't know. I'm not sure. All right, folks, that's all I have for now, though. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be educated, informed, and entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Spring. I'll see you guys again for the next live session tomorrow. Yeah, we should have a live tomorrow, man. Should. Hey, you know Nathan, True Talk, if you take on an ex-producer for the podcast, my good and good. We're working. I have to get the next studio